Hi, welcome to Comfy Cozy Knitting Podcast. My name is Laura Hardin, and I'm glad to be here with you today. This is actually a reboot of my knitting podcast, formerly known as Not Another Knitting Podcast. Just don't worry about where that came from. Obviously, there are a lot of knitting podcasts, and I just thought it was funny. I guess it's a little bit snarky. I'm leaving that in the past. So I'm really excited to be here. I've wanted to do this for so long, hence the fact that I've tried it before. But back then I did not have a mic. And even though this is not sightly, it's not pleasant to look at, it does make a huge difference. I also took a different approach to my former knitting podcast. I just kind of threw it together all haphazard, as I've done many creative things in my life. And I just didn't really like the finished product. Um, it wasn't really what I was going for. And when I think about the podcast that I enjoy watching, mine just did not fit the bill. And while this still is not exactly what I want to be, I think this is something that I can build from. And if you have stuck around this far, thank you. There are some amazing knitting podcasts out there. And so the fact that you would take the time to listen to this one means a whole lot. And at the end of this, I do hope to shout out some of the podcasts that inspired me to do this in the first place, way back then, almost, I guess, maybe a year and a half ago. Actually, was it this past summer? Maybe. And I would like to shout out the podcaster who inspired me to give it another go. So let's just jump into this thing. I'm going to follow a pretty typical format. I'm going to share finished products. Usually, I want it to be something that's fresh off the needles, but today I'm just going to show you something I've done since 2005 began. And I'll share what I'm currently working on, and then I'll share what's coming up next. So, yeah, let's get into it. So, my first, well, the only fresh off the needles, not necessarily fresh, just the only finished project that I have today is the basic unisex socks. I actually have knit two pairs of these this year. The second, they're mine, and ooh, that wasn't wise. They're mine, and they're dirty, so I don't have those to show. But these are still clean because these are actually for my sock shop. I started a little sock shop last fall as a way to help fund my hobby so I can get more yarn that I like. And what I like to do is knit socks that are kind of like the average woman's foot size. Anyone from a 7 to 9 inch foot circumference, I think, can wear this. Like if you wear a US size 7 to 9, you can fit this sock. So I really like them. I really love them in white. Unfortunately, I can't enjoy white socks in my house because we're just not clean enough, and I have a dog, and I wish I was better, but I'm not. And so these are for someone else, and I just really am jealous of the person who will get to enjoy these socks. These were knit in Lankava Mainio, which is a Finnish yarn. I got this from an online shop from a US owner who's from Finland, and she imports yarns from Finland to have an affordable wool option here. So this yarn is really affordable. It's a really good quality. It is sock yarn, so it does have polyamide with the wool, and it is a superwash wool, but it is not merino. And because it's a Finnish wool, I'm not exactly sure the specifics, it doesn't say. It is a lot toothier than I would have imagined. So they're very warm, and you'll see with the socks that I'm knitting now just how toothy they are, and but they're also great. I have socks that I've knit for myself, and I enjoy wearing them. They're soft, they're warm, and I'll tell you more about this company later. I'll put in a little plug when I share the socks that I'm working on now. So this is my recently finished product. Okay, moving on. What I'm working on right now. You know what? For simplicity, let me just start with the socks, right? Like that would make a lot of sense. So I'll just go ahead and do that plug. So I am affiliate. I am not used to this mic, so I'm really sorry that I keep touching it. But I am an affiliate with Finished Knits. And if you buy yarn, if you want to try these yarns, you are helping me out because this is the only way that I get money to buy yarn for the projects that I'm excited to knit. My sock shop, which if you've ever tried to sell your handmade items, it's not like I'm making a whole lot there. And then this affiliate link. So I'm not on Instagram anymore. So there are not many ways for people to learn about this link. And I'm really thankful for the relationship that I have with this shop that I can offer this link. And so, yeah, try Linkava Manyo, try Linkava Sulo. That's their fingering sock yarn. They also have Linkava Listri, which is the Aran sock yarn. Try it out. Help your girl out. I get a little kickback, and you get fun, quality, affordable yarn. She also has some other yarns that are a little more pricey that are nice, some of which you might have heard of. So just go check it out, see if there's anything you would like to try. So right now, I'm actually working on another pair of socks for the sock shop. Now, I knit the white ones and then I knit some for myself, and I'll show those another time. Excuse me. And then I cast these on. These are Laid Edges by Kelly McPherson. This is a free pattern on Ravelry. And I had my eyes on this pattern for a while because I really love the cable kind of motif going down. It kind of reminds me of leaves or something, but I also like this idea of laid edges as well. And it has an interesting heel flap and gusset. I only knit heel flaps and gussets. I haven't tried another heel. I've only been knitting for 3 years and I've only been really sock knitting for 2. And you kind of will, I find that it's easy to lean on what you know. And since the heel flap and gusset tends to work well with a lot of heels, I just like to go with what I know works. And this is pretty much how I work in a lot of different areas of life. Why try something new at a restaurant? You're spending money on it. Just get what you know you like. That's kind of how I am. I rarely venture out. It's just not a lot of fun, but it does bring satisfying results. So I don't know if you can see it, but it's a bit different than the typical heel flap. I'm trying to see, does this have, no, this is different. So, it reminds me of Eye of the Partridge. I've only really seen it in the Anne Budd book that I have. So this may be Eye of the Partridge, but in the book, that pattern looks more distinct. So this might be something in between, but it is cute. It's like a nice little touch to the design. Excuse me. I had to creak my chair to pick up the sock that I dropped. And this is where I am on the second sock. This is knit in Linkava Manyo. I'm pretty much obsessed with the Linkava sock yarn right now. And this colorway is cinnamon. I'm trying to think, is there anything else to say about that? I'm knitting it with size 2 needles. So it's a DK yarn, I should say that. Linkava Manyo is DK. And I'm knitting it with size 2 needles to kind of give that denser fabric, make it durable. And I already gave you my little plug, so we're going to move on to my second project that I'm working on. I'm really excited about this one. I cast this next project on April 22nd of last year. And This was not a planned project. This was spontaneous. This was impulsive. This is the project. This is the front. This is the Salty Air Tea. I'm not really sure how this is working with the camera. Okay, fun fact. This is my second, I'm covering the mic. This is my second time filming this. I filmed it yesterday on my porch, and it was a decent recording, but I did it 4K, and it's a huge file, and I'm having trouble getting it from my phone to my computer to edit, and it definitely needs some editing because my 3-year-old needed me a few times. So I decided, for simplicity's sake, to just go ahead and record it again, because when I was sitting here in my husband's office trying to get the file onto the computer, I thought, let me just see what I look like on my camera for the lighting and all that. And it turned out, I was like, this is a great space to record a podcast. And I thought it might be easier to set it up because I have the desk in front of me. I can rest my things. So I decided, let me just give it another go with a smaller file, and maybe this will be easier for me and my husband, and easier for you to see things faster, because at the rate it was going before, I would barely ever post any videos. So this is my second go around, and hopefully it's better than the first. All right, so Salty Air Tea. I am knitting this in Malabrigo Machita. I got this from a local yarn shop. The colorway is Sunset. And I got this from a local yarn shop in Annapolis, Maryland called Knits in Pieces. Hopefully you can see that well. And like I said, this was an impulsive buy. I had just come back not too long before I went to the store from Maryland Sheep and Wool with some knitting friends. We have a local meetup, and we decided to go to this festival together. It was a whole lot of fun, and I spent my budget on yarn there. But then we decided a few weeks after to go to Knits and Pieces as a little field trip. And while I was there, I was determined to not spend much money. I was going to buy just some sock yarn. I was going to find the most affordable sock yarn that I could find. And I had the yarn. I had chosen the colors I wanted and everything. And then one of my friends came up and said, hey, did you hear about the summer tea cow that Knits and Pieces is doing? And she showed me the picture. Now, to be honest with you, when I saw the picture of this, it was a printout. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I just have to knit this. Oh, this is amazing. I need this in my life. No, I wasn't. Lacework is something that I wanted to venture into eventually, but it was not high up on my list. I would rather, at that time, I hadn't done color work yet, and I'm thinking there was probably something else I was interested in, like brioche or fisherman's rib or whatever. So anyway, this was not something I was like anxious to do. But I do love connecting with other people. I love community, and the idea of doing a cow with people in my life that I know, that sounded really fun. So I'm like, oh, I don't want to be left out. I'm going to get some yarn. And so they had this Malabrigo Machita in this color that looks so beautiful. It is beautiful. And I think it was $17 a hank. And I went for it. Unplanned. I haven't said much about my life and who I am, but I am a homeschooling mom of 4. We live in the Baltimore, Washington, Virginia area, and we're on one income. So the budget is tight, hence me trying to find ways to get money for what I love to do. So I bought this yarn, and I'm so anxious. I felt like a way I felt when I was a kid when I did something I wasn't supposed to do. And my husband's great, but I just knew, like, ideally, if I'm going to spend money after I've already spent whatever money I had for this kind of thing, that I should talk to him, right? Because we all know that if you budget, that there's just not free money just sitting around. It belongs somewhere. It's assigned to something. If I'm spending it, I'm taking it from something else. So that's just something I should talk to him about, you know? So I got home, I told him the story. He was totally fine. Totally fine. He is a great guy. His name is Adam. And yeah, so we did that. So I started the shirt. And then once we got to the fall, because, you know, I never work on just one project. I was knitting socks for another cow. I was working on another project you're going to see in this episode. And so then when we got to the fall, this wasn't done, but I really wanted to move into sweaters knitting because I wanted to wear some of my sweaters this winter. So unfortunately, you would have seen the sweater I'm talking about because that's what I wore yesterday, but I'm not wearing it now. Right now, I'm wearing the first sweater I ever knit. I don't remember the name, might have been October sweater, and it's a kit from Lion Brand. I use whatever yarn they recommended for that, and I love the color a lot. But I also learned more about myself from this because it like the arms are too short and the body doesn't have any shaping and it's a bit shorter than I would like as well, which this theme is going to come up again because this is a mistake that I tend to make. But anyway, I wanted to get back to my sweater knitting. So I put this on pause. I probably only knit to like about here. And I told myself I would come back to it in January. And I was committed to it because even though my husband was so nice and so cool about the purchase, I wanted to make sure that this didn't just become a project that's in a bag at the bottom of my closet that I never return to, especially since it's not something that I was inclined to knit without this push from friends. So I did. I got back to it in January, and I think I've made some really good progress. I'm very close to being done. And in fact, if I were following the pattern, I would be done. I would definitely be done. But I want to make this longer. I'll show you, see if I can show you kind of where it falls. Like I already said, this sweater is not as long as I would like. It seems long, but when I sit, this rides up. Now, maybe this is technically the front. I sometimes get confused. But I don't like, because I don't wear high-rise pants, so I don't like when, like, my back is exposed. And so putting this up, I mean, I know it's not the same as if I put it on. Like, I clearly need some more length. And this says to knit 7 inches from the armhole before you start your ribbing. And so I definitely have done that, but that's not what I want. And if I were just going to wear this over dresses or something, sure. But I want to wear those with shorts and pants and things like that. So I'm going to add length because this is just something that I keep doing. This is such a problem that even my husband is like, you're going to knit that long, right? Because if it's not long, I'm not going to love it. And I definitely want to love it. I'm knitting these with size 3 and 4 needles, size 3 for the ribbing, for the body. And I think that's about it. This is superwash merino. So I forgot about that and realized it yesterday. And I was kind of worried that maybe once I block it, it's going to be a lot bigger. But after chatting with some friends, I decided to just go ahead and knit it the length that I want. And if I block it and it's too long, I can always rip out some of the ribbing and go from there. I'd rather do that than what I have going on with another sweater. That's a really nice sweater, but it's just not as long as I like. I only like to wear it with dresses. And now with that one, I actually have to go all the way back to the stockinette, knit more stockinette, and then knit the hem again. So we'll see. I'm hoping to have this tee finished in a week or two. That's my hope. So moving on now to what's next. So I was working on this last summer, and I was also working on this. And I started this in the spring with real hopes to wear this last summer. This is the Sailor Swift top, and I should have looked up her name. I didn't know it yesterday, and I still don't know it today. Veronica something. She is pretty well known among knitters. Can't think of her last name, but Sailor Swift top. So what slowed me down? Clearly I got really far. Well, this has I-cord edging, and I've never done that before. And this is my second attempt, and it was still too small, and I just gave up. So I really wish that I had taken it out back then. I wish I had written notes about how I picked up the stitches so I don't make the same mistake again. I didn't do that, but I want to finish this because I love the colors. This was knit in Hobby Friends Cotton 8-4 in the colorways Blush and Deep Ocean. And I'm thinking that I'll give the I-cord edging one more try. And if I can't get it, I may just do a rib edge. So I do think that this would be really cute the way that it is written. But I think I was pretty much discouraged by this. Now I've seen other people knit this and they didn't have a lot of experience with I-cord edges either, and they got it. So I think I just need to be more patient and give it another go. So we'll see. So this is what's next. I'm focusing on these so I can wear them in season as we're getting into spring soon and summer. I want to wear these. Once I finish this, I plan on getting back to sweater knitting because that's my favorite. And I think I'll save the conversation about those plans for another episode. I did not, obviously, I'm just now getting back to this podcast thing. So I didn't do a Make 9, and I'm thinking about doing one. I know it's late, but why not? Because I do have plans and it would be fun to talk about them. So I'll save that. The other thing, once I have this thing that I like to do where if I'm gift knitting or knitting for my sock shop, I like to knit for others, then knit for myself. So even though I am knitting for myself with this shirt, I need socks too, you know? I don't have that many because I love knitting socks for my husband and my kids. So I really don't have that many. So I'm planning on knitting socks in this yarn. This is Fleece Artist Organic Cottage Socks, 80% organic merino, 20% nylon, and the colorway Sedona. Now it says that it is machine washable. I don't know how. It doesn't say superwash. I don't know what I think about that. I still have the price tag on here. Okay. But all right, so I got this at Maryland Sheep and Wool, and this called to me because it came with a pattern from Fleece Artist called Cherry Swirl Socks, and it doesn't look that impressive to me the way it is online or even on the paper that she had. It was just like gray or something. Maybe she didn't print it in color. I don't know. But in all of her samples with this Fleece Artist yarn, that sock was gorgeous. So I was supposed to knit this in the summer, but I got caught up. Well, I told myself, finish the socks you already have. Then I opened my sock shop and was knitting shorties for that. And so now it's time. It's time to cast these babies on. I was going to do some vanilla socks in some yarn that I got from a D-stash that's already caked. But the truth is that the yarn shades, they're not calling to me, but this is. And I think it's important for us to knit like, you know, what's speaking to us, right? Like that's important. So that's what's coming up next. And yeah, I'm looking at my notes for how I wanted to conclude this. Originally, I was going to be wearing a favorite sweater of mine that I did not knit. And I wanted to talk to you about another knitting dream. So that is also coming up in another episode. Now, I did say that I wanted to shout out some podcasters who have inspired me to start this. And I'm just making sure my mic is on. Oh, I can see it. My computer reflection. Okay, cool. So, all right. When I first started, it was because I was inspired by Taylor Earl of Wool Needle Hands. That was the first podcast that I just fell in love with because of her personality, but also because of her style. For a long time, I never got into knitting or crochet or anything like that because when I saw what people were making, I didn't like it. This isn't to throw shade, but it would be like a lot of like teals and purples and like just a lot of color and put in a way that just didn't. So I was younger, so it definitely was like that is not cool. It just looked lame to me, and that's kind of what I thought of. I didn't realize that there were people knitting things that maybe you would buy from the store, or like a really nice sweater that maybe you couldn't buy at the store, but maybe a really fancy store or something. I don't know. So when I saw the things that she was working on, I was like, oh wow, like those items look really nice. And I think she was the one who put me on to the designers and just the whole world of like Ravelry and what's out there. But I like her choices. So I feel like I can get a lot of inspiration for future projects just from watching her podcast. And then I can learn a lot about knitting as she discusses her process. All right, so that's Taylor Earl, and then another one. There's so many that I love and watch, but as far as like what inspired me to jump in front of this camera, another one was Allie of Allie Makes Everything. She started her podcast a little over a year ago, and she's just a really cool person. And I remember responding or like commenting on her podcast, and she would engage because she was new, and I'm sure at that time, and she still is, but like grateful for the engagement and all that. But she actually, and this is kind of embarrassing, she actually looked at some of my podcast episodes and responded and engaged, which I really appreciated. But it was also embarrassing because those episodes were just so bad. In my opinion, I'm almost like tempted to put them back up because they're just archived right now, and maybe it would be fun to just go back and look at those. But anyway, I appreciate her for that. And recently, she uh, published a couple episodes about her experience on YouTube. And I was just inspired to like, oh man, I really want to do this. I don't really understand why I want to get in front of a camera and talk about what I'm knitting, except that I always have loved talking about whatever I'm into, whether it's Star Wars or books that I'm reading, or as a person of faith, like the Bible, or what I'm learning about God, or um, right now I'm really into karate and stuff like that. Like I'm always sharing the things I'm into. And so I just have felt this itch. Like I want to do this. I like creating content, and I like the idea of creating content around knitting and connecting with knitters. So she inspired me, like, you can do this. And she said something in one of the videos like, it doesn't have to be fancy. Like, yes, I have these different things, but you really can just do this with a phone. And knowing that my phone has a decent camera, even though it's an old phone, it's an old Pixel, I was like, maybe I can do this. And I said something about how I really wanted to do it, but felt like I couldn't. And she was just really encouraging in response to my comment. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I can do this. So I just kind of had it in the back of my mind of like, I think I'm going to try to give this a go when I can. And then the other day, I remember this mic that I bought, and when I tried to use it, it didn't work. And I just thought, I think I'm going to do some more digging and figure out if I can get this thing to work. And then sure enough, it did work. And so here we are. Another one that inspired me is Inga of Knitting Traditions. I just there are a lot of podcasts that I could list, right? And so I'm not going to list them all here. I will share others in future episodes. But I'm sharing her because I think it's important, because I don't consistently watch everyone. I just can't. But I do consistently watch hers, any ones that I mentioned today. There's one more that I could mention, and I'm gonna save that because her her podcast is so unique that in a way it could discourage me from podcasting because the level of quality is just crazy. The level of production is just insane. So she's in her own category, and some of you might already know who I'm talking about, but I will just leave that for later. But Inga is someone that I pretty much watch every episode she posts now. And I just like her because she's just so chill. The vibe is very different from the other two I've mentioned. She's very chill and she just comes and shares what she's working on. And it's just, I just like it. And it makes me want to do it. And it makes me see how simple the sharing can be. Lastly, I want to mention Hanan Bonet's podcast. She's a newer podcaster as well. She only has a few episodes, I think. I found out about her last month. And the reason why she made it to the list is because it's so simple and she's completely herself, as all these ladies are. But she just makes me feel like, Laura, stop taking yourself so seriously. And everyone I've mentioned in all the podcasts that I watch, they're all similar in this way. But I think Hanan brings this to light for me, especially. They're just being themselves. And that's the best thing we can do here in this space is be ourselves. And you can tell when somebody is so inspired by a podcaster that they get in front of their phone and they just do what other people are doing. And it doesn't really seem authentic. And I think there was a way in which I was doing that at first. I don't think I did that the whole time when I started, but I just decided that this go round, it's just going to be what it is. It's just, it is what it is. And people are going to love it. They're going to hate it. They're going to scroll past it. They're gonna, whatever. But I'm grateful for the encouragement of like, this really can be simple. And I'm just thankful for the journey. So if you have made it this far, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And please comment. Let me know that you're here. Let me know what you're working on. And if you have any questions, and that's it. I'm still figuring out like how I want to wrap these things up, but I do look forward to being back here with you soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day and week.